The Liberal Party has declared war with Labor over electricity prices after abandoning its climate targets yesterday in a move that largely mirrored the Nationals' energy policy. Joining us live this Friday morning is the opposition leader, Sussan Ley. Susan, good to have your company this morning. Thank you. So the Liberal Party lost a bag of seats over recent elections, most of those being inner-city, climate-conscious Teal seats. By abandoning climate targets, how do you win those back?
Well, I know that all of the seats that we weren't successful at the last election and the seats that we hold, indeed everywhere in Australia this morning, Pete, Australians will be looking for answers. And what we decided from the Liberal Party yesterday was a policy that delivers affordable energy and responsible emissions reduction. And that matters to every Australian household, because you'll have people watching your program this morning that are genuinely worried about their power bills going into summer. Will they be able to keep their air conditioning on? Can they keep the kids cool? And that feeling of not even wanting to open your power bill because you know it's going to have a huge number and you're worried about whether the weekly budget can pay it. Australians deserve better. In a country with energy abundance, we can do this in a way that delivers affordable energy and responsible emissions reduction. That's what we announced yesterday as Liberal Party policy.
But when you've got these seats, these inner city seats, particularly with a younger voting cohort who demands stronger action on climate, how are you going to win those over by going the other way?
Young Australians have told me that they care about climate. I care about climate too, Pete. And I care that this government has made promises that they can't keep, targets that they can't meet, impossible costs on families that are struggling right now. And I know that when you look at Labor's record on emissions, it's actually flatlining or even going up. So we've got this trifecta of energy failures that we're facing right now under Labor. Prices are going up, reliability is going down and emissions are flatlining. So where is the climate policy that actually makes sense? What we've said is we will reduce emissions on average year on year, in line with comparable countries, as far and as fast as technology will allow. We will actually be able to do this. But Australians deserve affordable energy, not power prices that have gone up 40%, or a government that has simply told lies by saying 2 elections in a row, your power prices will come down. And they've gone up. They've skyrocketed. OK, one such seat is Tim Wilson's, who might now leave your front bench to focus on holding Goldstein. Do you expect that to happen? Tim's an outstanding colleague and he's playing a critical role in my shadow ministry. He's doing work across the board, including in something that we want to get right, which is industrial relations and a fairer workplace for employers and employees. And I'm sure I'll have a conversation with you about that some other time. But I know that every one of my colleagues, and look, I come back to every seat, it's about Australians for me, Pete. It's about the national interest. It's about the right thing for our country. And most importantly, it's about what's right for Gen Z and millennials who right now can't afford to buy a home, can't pay their power bills, and are looking at a government that is set to deliver them a worse standard of living than their parents. That's just not fair. Because when energy is unaffordable, everything is unaffordable.
Sure, but do you expect him to stay in his role?
Absolutely. And when I talk to colleagues, they reflect the concerns that their members, or I should say their communities, have from where they are in Australia. And they say, as we have, Australians deserve affordable energy and responsible emissions reduction. Our plan delivers those 2 things. Remember, Labor promised you that your prices would in fact go down. They've gone up. And they promised you that they'd reduce emissions, and they haven't kept that promise. And they've already spent $75 billion getting to where we are now over 20 years with emissions flatlining. And there are estimates that get to their 2035 target will cost over $500 billion more. So they're not being honest and upfront. Where are these costs coming from? What will it mean for electricity bills for Australian households? How can they possibly go down as Labor has promised?
Susan, you mentioned yesterday, I was watching your press conference, and you mentioned that you wanted to dismantle Labor's renewable rush. What exactly does that mean? Is that stopping planned developments but keeping what's already underway, or literally taking out solar farms, wind towers, new power lines, etc.?
We believe in renewables in the right place with what people understand is social licence, Pete, because in a lot of places they're being pushed through. Transmission lines in northern Victoria are a good example. Of course, renewables have their place. But so do other technologies, because we need to bring gas into the system, supply into the system to start to bring power prices down. Now, Labor has something called the National Energy Objective, and that objective starts from a long-term target which is impossible to meet, and we're saying we should have national energy objectives that put affordable energy as the first and most important thing. Now, that makes sense. Ideological commitments well into the future, and then a cascading effect that means that manufacturing is closing, power prices are going up 40%. You know, I've been speaking to you over the last 3 years as the Shadow Minister for Industry, and you know that I'm passionate about our manufacturers, about the people who really do make things in Australia and who deserve to have affordable energy to do exactly that.
But just specifically, what projects would you nix? Would you draw a line through?
Pete, if contracts are on foot, of course we are not going to undo contracts. We understand that. But remember that the mission that Labor is on with solar and wind is well behind time. So many of these projects haven't even begun, and they are, in some cases, estimated to take at least 8 to 10 years. So that's a perfect proof point of why this is not working, because Labor promised you, and you're talking about renewable energy projects, that 82% of the grid would be renewable by 2030. Now, everyone knows that that's completely impossible to meet because the supply chain for the renewable grid largely comes from overseas. Everything is imported. So if you want a transformer to turn direct current energy through high voltage lines into a power system, and you're waiting for that piece of equipment to come overseas, the waiting time is blowing out all the time because it's all imported. It's not going to be delivered on time. And if you insist, as Labor is on these targets, the cost is just skyrocketing. Meanwhile, we have alternatives. We have an abundance of Australian energy that should be brought to bear to the task at hand, which is affordable energy for Australian households and responsible emissions reduction.
Sure. This withdrawal, though, and given what you've said, does that not lead to more business uncertainty? Because the BCA certainly thinks so.
I know what businesses are facing right now, and it's closure, and it's pain, and it's electricity bills that mean manufacturing and jobs go offshore. There was no better example than Tomago Aluminium, where I was a couple of weeks ago. Now, if our biggest energy user in this country that does what it does at Tomago Aluminium better than any other aluminium smelter in the world, we should be so proud of that. But in fact, that smelter, Pete, which was turned on in 1983 and has never been turned off under this government's policies, is set to be turned off in 2028. And that is a warning signal to the whole country and to manufacturing generally. And if you're a manufacturer, and I'm going to meet many in the next few days, as I continually have, that makes things from aluminium or steel or plastic or glass, you are seeing an impossibility of actually getting the raw materials to make things in Australia. And it's all because of energy prices. If energy is unaffordable, everything else is.
Well, on that point, and you do mention this is all about providing affordable energy and a responsible emissions reduction. You said that in your earlier response. So when do you expect emissions to come down, and when will prices come down?
Well, we are determined to bring electricity prices down, but I'm not going to lie to the Australian people like Labor has. I'm not going to stand here and say your bill will come down by $275. But the way you bring prices down, Pete, is very simple. You inject more supply into the system, and that's what we don't have right now. Australia
so that takes
has
time, though. That's a long time then before emissions come down then and people start saving.
And that's why, well, under Labor, emissions are going up. And that is a travesty because it actually isn't meeting any target at all that they have set for themselves or for the world. And we need to call that out. And we need to say that there is a better way. But let's look at how we do reduce emissions. Obviously, gas is an important decarbonisation transition fuel. In Australia, we have abundant supplies of LNG. We're probably the second or third biggest exporter of LNG in the world. But right now, we're exporting our gas. We're not using it in our own power stations. We're not generating gas for Australians and Australian energy. And it all comes back to getting that supply in the system and starting to get power prices down. Because I come back to my main point, Pete, families are really struggling. 40% is a massive increase to your energy bill. And while you see your energy bill when you open it on the kitchen table, you also, I think, instinctively know that it's built into the price of everything at the supermarket. It's built into this cost of living increase. And that's not coming down anytime soon by Labor's own information. So we need to do better. We can do better. We've got to have affordable energy and responsible emissions reduction.
Well, just on that, a couple of quick ones. I know you've got to go to another interview, but a couple of quick ones to wrap up. On coal, will you support the construction of new coal-fired power stations?
Much of the grid now is supplied by coal, and that's a fact. Now, it makes no sense to prematurely close coal-fired power stations. And in fact, state governments are extending their life here in New South Wales. That's exactly
what about building new ones?
We're seeing it around the country. Well, there aren't proposals to build new ones. Anything that comes to the market with a proposal in a technologically agnostic way under our policy is considered. But my focus is on gas, transition, renewables in the right place, and actually getting affordable energy for Australians.
Okay, does this secure your role as leader, Sussan?
Absolutely, and I'm determined to fight every day for Australians. We always talk about Gen Z and millennials. They're always front of mind for me, Pete, because I meet many of them, and we should be here as leaders of this country backing in their future, not giving them a future with a lower standard of living than they have had, than their parents have had. And that's unfortunately what they're destined to under Labor. So we have to get this right. We have to get this right for the next generation. And it all hinges on affordable energy.
Given this change now, Sussan, are there roles back on the front bench for Andrew Hastie and Jacinta Price?
Well, my front bench is solid and part of the Liberal Party decision that we made yesterday. And in the conversations we've had, can I tell you, everyone, wherever they sit in any part of my party room, talked about the national interest. And it's something we firmly believe in, because the Liberal Party is here for aspiration, enterprise, choice, reward for effort, and backing in those people who take risks, including our wonderful small businesses who right now are seeing an impossible set of circumstances under Labor with unaffordable electricity. We care about them, we care about families, we care about the next generation.
So Hastie and Price stay where they are for now?
Well, my front bench is my front bench, but everyone has a role to play. It's not about where you sit in the parliament. I've always said that. And the passionate views of every single member in this debate are extraordinarily welcome, because everyone will be making the case, as they have in our party room and as they will continue to do out there in the community.
That's the Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. A lengthy chat this morning, but appreciate your time, Sussan. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.